You're watching Past the Wire TV.
Ciao tutti.
Hey, how's everybody doing?
How's it going, everybody?
Back home after a very exciting, action-filled, great racing Breeders' Cup. Nothing less than we expected, I have to say. We saw some great performances. And I'll say this, we're a little late doing our recap show because our recap show ain't like a lot of other recap shows. Our recap show is our takeaway show. And not just takeaways like, this happened or that happened. We're looking at takeaways where we're going to try and find like a Tiffany diamond out there for the future. So we wanted to be late because we're hitting cleanup and coming in behind everybody. So being first, being fast with this kind of stuff doesn't matter. The smoke clears, the dust settles, the adrenaline kind of runs out of your system. You watch a couple of plays, you get a much better perspective. So I personally watched all the Breeders' Cup races again, just to make sure that like my wagering or my excitement didn't kind of, cloud my judgment on anything. So we got some good takeaways. The Breeders' Cup seminar went well. Gio's handicapping was excellent. Big Race Jim was excellent. We all had, some good calls, some bad calls. I will say the Japanese did get blanked. And I did say that was a very distinct possibility. They were a little overhyped this year. We all did really well. It was a lot of fun. And thank you to everybody before we get started. So many people came over, not just to me, but to Big Race Jim. So many people came over and said, say hello to Gio, and asked about Gio. He wasn't there. So it was like, even Charles, people asked me about Charles. Everybody said that their whole team was doing a great job. Not one person came over and had anything negative to say. Some people even passed me in passing and just like, hey, Pastor Wire, you guys do a great job. I don't want to bother you. It just kept going. But so many people, I had to take 50 pictures with people I don't even know who they are. But I thanked every one of them for, coming to say hello. I got some nice messages about my sunglasses, so that didn't go unnoticed. So it was a lot of fun. Jim and I had a couple of really good dinners. One in particular, that one place I liked a lot, where I had the lobster tail and you had the prime rib.
Red Traction or Red Tractons,
whatever the heck it was.
That was good.
Really, that was a really good dinner. Gio, next year you got to go, man. You would have had a great time. We were hanging out with everybody. We went everywhere. We had access to the owners' lounge, this, that, you name it. It really went well.
That is a very highly likely scenario. Yeah, I needed to be there. I was sweating you guys. When I was watching you guys in your updates, I said, man, I wish I was right there in the trenches with both Jim and John. But like I said, next year it's at Del Mar again next year.
Yeah. Well, There's no better time than now, if you're not a member, to become a member of Tracking Trip. Tracking trips at Past the Wire, no matter what your level of play is. People play the horses for all types of reasons. The action, the excitement, the thrill, the challenge. Some, believe it or not, even play expecting to lose. Me, I don't have that problem. I play to win and take down scores and have been doing it successfully for a long time. This is the life I've chosen. Don't go into battle alone. I do that. And you can have me and Tracking Trips as your second set of eyes. You can be a better. Let's win this fight. Patience, discipline, like a cobra, ready to strike at the right time. When we win, we celebrate, and we celebrate hard because the rewards make all of it worth it. Nobody does it better. Tracking trips have passed the wire. Be a member, unless, of course, you hate money. Well, good job. I would say that I don't have that many observations about the Friday Juvenile card. One thing overall that takes over, goes over both days. I think Irad got blanked. I don't think Irad won a Breeders' Cup race. I know he won a race on the undercard, but I don't think he won any Breeders' Cup races, which is pretty rare because he usually, game faces it and steps up on those days. And he had some live mounts. Not the kind of standouts he usually gets, but he had some horses that had a shot. And I thought, going in, I don't think a lot of people would have said Irad's going to get blanked.
Yeah, I don't think it's happened over the last 4 or 5 years, to be honest with you. And he's had some big days. One of the things I wanted to add, my first takeaway adds to what you said in the intro, John, on Juvenile Friday. The Japanese contingents, they ran in 5 races. They ran 8th, 9th, 8th, 10th, and 8th.
Yeah.
That's kind of crazy, right? And all but one was a massive underlay.
Yeah, and we talked about that. I talked a lot about that at the seminar. I said a lot of them, they've been having such success, and what I thought was odd, and Jim and I talked about it when we were there. You had a lot of horses that ran once or twice over there and won easy, and it looked like they just said, you know what, just send them over there because we're beating all those American horses anyway. And I had a feeling that exactly what you said was going to happen, that they were going to be overhyped, overbet, and just not perform at the level that they have been, which is to take nothing away from them. But I think they came in a little bit overconfident in some of their horses this year, and I think it showed. Now, the glaring thing, I was against East Avenue in the Juvenile, and really his race was over at the start, and that changed the whole complexion of the race. Personally, I didn't think that if he did break, he was going to be able to run with Citizen Bull the way he ran, but he might have put pressure on him from the inside because I thought Tyler had to go from the rail. And Hill Road, who was, 50, 60, 70 to 1 and ran third first time on the dirt, might have won the race had East Avenue broke. Never know.
Yeah, it was shocking.
Yeah, I mean, his nose going into the dirt was just, that really, like you said, it just really changed the whole pace dynamic of the race. It kind of like I was sitting there getting video of the race, and you almost like he kind of like took the air out of the race, like within the first half a second. I agree. I don't think anybody was perhaps catching Citizen Bull that day. I was a little disappointed in Ferocious, and I was disappointed in his prior start too. I think you've said this multiple times, John, that East Avenue just had that massive pace advantage at Keeneland, and Ferocious just didn't make up any ground that day. Just coming back into the Juvenile, I don't know, I would have just expected a little bit of a better showing from him, and unfortunately we didn't get it.
I definitely did.
When you're saying the whole race changed, of course, the whole complexity of the race from a handicapping perspective, you almost have to take for granted that East Avenue is going to be on the lead or near the lead around the first turn, not last. So when that didn't happen, I believe Jonathan's Way had a game plan. It's a fast horse. The game plan for Jonathan's Way was to sit back and make a big run, not to be entrenched in a speed duel. Chance and McPatrick just never fired, but I'm telling you, going into the race, I liked Gaiman a lot more than I liked who's the horse again?
Citizen Bull.
Citizen Bull. Not taking anything away from Bob's horse. They ran big. But in my opinion, to next year, I think Gaming is going to be more of a threat. It says a lot than Citizen Bull when it comes to the prep races and maybe the Kentucky Derby.
I wouldn't argue that point. I would tend to agree with that going forward. And I think if Bob was sitting here in the fourth square, he would probably agree with that too. But I won't speak for him. But I have a feeling he would. The only other thing I will say on the 2-year-old card, and then I'm ready to move to the 3-year-old card, unless you guys or the
Yeah,
Saturday.
I got one more for Juvenile.
All right. I will say that Lake Victoria did not disappoint at all. She came with a lot of hype. She ran to it. I didn't think she got the best trip, but she was able to win anyway. And it was very, to me as a fan of the game and a student of the game, it was fun to watch Ryan ride her, because even when things you could tell weren't going the way that he wanted and was hoping, he just never panicked. He sat chilly. I think he knew what he had under him, and he just let all the traffic develop. And he said, you know what? There's no hole. I'll just go to the outside. It ain't going to matter. And it didn't. She's a major Group 1 player next year in England and Ireland for sure.
Yeah, well, my take on that, John, excellent, because you sort of stole my thunder with Lake Victoria. Tremendous professional, her ways, precocious ways. She was just seems to be in control. That's a dynamic filly. The filly I wanted to talk about was Brad Cox's filly, Immersive. Now, the scratch of non-compliant obviously helped the chances. And we're gonna see more from non-compliant. John, I don't know too much about what happened with the horse. It was a vet scratch. Is the horse sick or something happened?
I don't know. I don't know. I heard early. We knew a day before they announced it that she was scratched, because we were hanging out with the owner. We almost went to dinner with the owner. We interviewed him and talked about the horse. And about an hour or two after the interview, he texted me and said, "You're not going to believe this. We're scratched." And I never got into the whys or anything like that, so I don't really know.
Okay.
That was a shame, because they were excited to run. Guys,
Yeah.
A great group of people owned that horse, and they deserve to have their shot. But she'll be back, and then they've got a nice thing going. So
And
when you're with Bob, you're going to wind up in the big races.
Yeah, the one thing I wanted to conclude on Immersive, and maybe the viewers will remember I'm saying this, I was very impressed with just across the board, athleticism, maturity, defiance, her turn of foot. Brad Cox, don't be surprised that horse is going to be favored in the fantasy to begin her 3-year-old campaign. And you may hear a lot from, I don't think it's a reach to say that horse is going to make her presence felt in the Oaks in May.
Well, we'll see. Long way to go for that, but she's definitely, as a juvenile filly winner. I mean, that's obviously on the radar for sure.
That American Bikini too, was, I don't know what the heck she was doing going into that first turn. I don't know, she just completely took herself.
I heard from a reliable source, and I believe Jim, that I heard from a reliable source that they were really high on that one, and that she was supposed to be one of their better runners. And the Japanese horses just didn't show up, kind of like on Saturday. City of Troy didn't show up at all. I will say this, got to give a shout out to Aiden O'Brien, who offered to give me his City of Troy vest, which I did not wind up with. The stock on it went down anyway. Ryan, stock went way down on it. It was a nice vest, but the stock went way down on it. But just never worked out where I could get it from him. He had to wear it until Friday, and then it just didn't work out. But gracious gentleman. And let me tell you something. That guy had microphones stuck in his face all week long, like he was a movie star from Hollywood, not a horse trainer. Okay. And to do his job and manage those kind of horses and those people and have, people sticking those microphones in your faces like that has to be annoying. And he handled everyone like a gentleman, very gracious. Big shout out to Aiden. Class act 100%. And to offer to give me his vest, I asked him, Aiden, how do I get a vest? He goes, I'll give you mine. He goes, I just have to wear it till Friday, which was just super nice of the guy. Did not absolutely have to do that at all. Ryan Moore catches a lot of heat about not giving interviews and giving snappy, snide answers and stuff like that. He was a gentleman with us. We interviewed him. We spoke with him. Complete 100% gentleman, nice guy. And I think a lot of the stuff that you hear about these people is people respond, I think, to how you treat them. You know, if you come off like a jerk off and treat somebody like a jerk off, you're going to get treated that way back, you know. We didn't have any problems with anybody. Everybody was good to us, and we had a lot of fun. Bob was gracious as always. Just everybody we came across. Chad was great. Todd was great. We spoke to everybody. But City of Troy, despite Coolmore and they actually, it's a funny thing. And I don't know if it was you, I joked about it with Jim. I said, John Mangier, who never comes to the Breeders' Cup, is coming, and everybody's assuming he's coming for City of Troy. What if they win it with Sierra Leone? Didn't we? We kind of joked about that.
Yeah, you did.
And that's kind of what happened. So, those Coolmore people are very sharp, and those lads, as Aiden likes to call them, they bet big money. Who knows? Who knows, man? They might have went home with a stallion with an excuse on the dirt and a bag full of money, because those guys play at the highest level.
My last thing,
they're world class horsemen and world class marketers as well.
They really are. But we'll start with the classic. I mean, City of Troy, just a flop for whatever reason. Aiden took the blame, said he didn't have him prepared to come out of the gate as fast as he would have to for American racing. Personally, I don't agree with that. I think he just didn't have it. He was a flop. I thought Fierceness ran extremely brave in defeat. I was certainly wrong about Fierceness all year long. I wasn't wrong about him going into the Classic. I knew he was alive. I was a little surprised he wasn't on the lead until I saw the fractions, and I'm like, wow, you don't want to be on the lead. But as good as he ran, Sierra Leone ran, who I think all of us liked way back when. I know I was on him since October or November of last year, liked him in the Derby, was, did everything but win the Derby. Saturday, he ran straight, and that proved to be the difference. He got the setup we thought he'd get in Saratoga and really didn't. And
twice.
Right, twice. And when you look at it, at his body of work, I think he locked up the 3-year-old championship without any doubt. I don't think it's close, because he was consistent all year. He never threw in one bad race. And when it counted the most against the 3-year-olds and older, he ran straight, true, and beat them all. And salute Chad Brown, because Chad had that horse ready to run his A-plus game in the Derby. He ran it. We know what happened at the wire, and he didn't win. He had him ready to run his A++ game in the Breeders' Cup Classic and got it done. So, great training job by Chad, in my opinion, the way he kept that horse going all year. And Peter Brandt said they may run him next year. The Coolmore people may override that, but we may see Sierra Leone next year. So stay tuned. Gio, what was your take on the Classic? I know you like Sierra Leone. You've been high on him as long as we all have. I know you've been high on Fierceness even when I wasn't. And those two 3-year-olds came down to it. So does it knock the older division, or
my take on I had a few, I'll call it 4 or 5 takeaways from the Classic. And I'll start with Fierceness and Sierra Leone. Yes, I was all over Sierra Leone. In my opinion, watching the progression all year, they certainly solved the lugging in, his propensity to lug in.
First time he ran straight, really.
Yeah. So I love Sierra Leone in this race. And as much as I had an attachment to Fierceness, I really felt it in my blood and bones that Sierra Leone was going to turn the tables on Fierceness, which happened. Comment I wanted to make about Fierceness, just think about his stock. Not only did he run game in the Travers, and we know what the success of Torpedo Anna, but with those fractions, Johnny V, brilliant ride. He kept him back a few lengths, but for him to hold second like he did, considering he did all that hard work, big thumbs up for fierceness. Great racehorse, with the exception of the Kentucky Derby.
And a big thumbs up for the three of us for something else. Gun to the head. A week or two before the
10 days in advance. 10 days in
before
advance.
the Breeders' Cup Classic. Gun to the head. Big race, Jim. Sierra Leone.
I didn't pick Sierra Leone in
you
that.
didn't?
I went I like Forever Young, and I'll make an excuse for him here in a minute or two.
Okay.
10 days in advance, John. You're right.
It was me, you, and Charles on Sierra Leone.
Correct.
A lot of weight he carried. Eddie C, nice guy Eddie, he was on City of Troy.
City of Troy.
Right.
Two more takeaways.
Okay. Go ahead.
And we'll give it to Jim because I want to cover the other one. My thoughts on City of Troy, in my opinion, and I was incredibly impressed with the way the horse ran on the lawn in Europe, Group 1s and all. But in my opinion, I felt because he was so spectacular overseas that it was a reach in this particular field to have that horse run, because I'm a big pedigree guy and I know he's a Justify, but the bloodlines reek of turf. And I don't want to take too much of the time to break it all down, but that horse has turf pedigree. And, they took a shot and it didn't work out. But I thought it was more that they thought they had a brilliant horse, all those wins, big company, that he was going to match up, but they should have considered the depth of the field and have two more takeaways from the Classic.
It would have been interesting to see him run in the Breeders' Cup turf, and see what.
Yes.
Yeah,
Bring the horse to America. This is a big challenge, the Classic. My other two takeaways from the Classic, and that's all they are, is two. I never considered Next, even though he had so much brilliance at those journey races on the soil, there was such a significant class hike that you have to put into consideration. And it showed on the track. So I feel bad for the people that back Next, but one of the most significant things is because let's face it, he won by 8 or more lengths, 7 or 8 races in a row. Obviously, he was talented, but it was a major step up in class.
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of people realized. I didn't like him at all, and I think a lot of people didn't realize that those marathon races, no matter what the fractions are, no matter how much he's winning, they don't translate to the Classic at 1.25 miles. You know what I mean? They just don't translate the same. Very tough to do, that kind of campaign and then come back and be competitive in a race like the Breeders' Cup Classic, where they're running much faster than you're used to for 1.25 miles. And those good horses just, they were a cut above him. Jim, I'm curious about the Forever Young excuse.
I think the rider was just a little impatient and he swung out wide too soon because that rail opened up like 50 to 100 yards later. Like I joked to you on Friday, John. I think, about how American riders just leave the rail completely open in every single race. And, Fierceness and Johnny V left the rail completely wide open. And I thought Forever Young closed kind of well for being swung out so wide. And it seemed like he was even drifting too. Like he almost ended the race like on the apron, it seemed like. But I thought it was an absolutely perfect training job by Chad Brown and an absolutely perfect ride by Flavien Prat. You could argue, and I would say, I thought switching off of Tyler Gaffleone following the Derby was a little bit of a suspect move in my opinion, just because we saw it seemed like in the I think it was the Jim Dandy, Pratt's first ride on Sierra Leone. It's almost like he had him too far back to be effective in that race. And then I thought the similar thing happened in the Travers. He just didn't have him in the right spot to be effective. And we saw in the Classic, he was up a lot closer along the backstretch. He was starting to make up some ground. And I thought he timed that ride so perfectly to win by, a length and a half or 2 lengths. I will say, I disagree with both of you slightly on fierceness. He ran a fantastic race, but if you look back at the dirt races on Saturday, that front end speed was holding pretty good.
Absolutely.
And he had a dream trip, absolute dream trip, no problem whatsoever. He ran a great race. But you guys didn't say this, but I've seen some stuff on Twitter where people are saying, fierceness was the best horse, blah, blah, blah. And, he had an absolute
completely ridiculous.
No. Sierra Leone was the best horse at the Breeders' Cup. That's how history was.
Yeah, he ran fantastic. And we'll talk about some of the other dirt races too, where the horses on that front end held pretty good. But that's why, fierceness ran a solid race, but I wasn't, totally impressed with him. I'd be impressed if he won.
Yeah.
I have one more takeaway that the viewers may be interested in. They may mark it down. Newgate. I'm going to share one prediction. I love Newgate's race, and I just love the form he had coming into the race. One of the reasons why, and I'm happy I hit my superfecta, because I knew he was going to be on the board. I felt very confident about that. I didn't think he could beat Sierra Leone, but I knew he was going to be on the board. Newgate is going to be favored at the Pegasus World Cup at Gulfstream Park on January 25th. Let's see if I call that.
Okay.
What's your thought on that? Newgate. I want to hear what you guys think about Bob's Newgate.
I thought he ran good. I really did. He had a very, very wide draw, which is not ideal. I mean, there is a pretty long run down to straight to get to that first turn when you go 1.25 miles at Del Mar. But he was drawn a little bit wide, and I thought he ran. I thought he ran a good race. And
I agree. He was my top pick. So
I wouldn't be surprised.
You landed on Newgate, Jim?
Yeah. Wow, I thought his what was it, the Pacific Classic before that? I thought he ran absolutely, or that was a California Crown or whatever.
Yeah, California Crown. I think he was off a layoff too.
He was great there. So
he plans on racing him as a 4-year-old, right?
I don't know. I think
I don't know either.
I think he is 4.
I think he's 4.
Oh, he is 4. Is he going to race him again next year?
I don't know, but sometimes they don't race him next year just in the Pegasus, and then they retired him. So I really don't know. But one of the things we do on tracking trips, we look for horses that had trouble trips. Okay, and this is not about really the show about our bets or what we hit or what we didn't hit or what happened. But there are 3 horses that I'm going to point out that ran on Saturday that I believe in my heart, after watching the replays in the heat of the moment and watching them again calm down, that absolutely were the best horse that did not win because of the trip or the ride. The first one in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint was Motorious. Am I saying his name right? Motorious.
Yeah.
If you don't think Motorious was the winner and the best horse in that race, go back and watch it again. And if you still don't think so, this game ain't for you. Motorious was the best horse, no question about it. Should have won that race. And that's 2 years in a row that he got in trouble in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. The next horse I'm going to mention also could have won the Breeders' Cup Sprint last year and could have won it this year, and that's Shahara. And I don't know if I'm saying that right, Shahara or Shahayar, whatever that horse's name is, that Christian DeMoro rode in the race that Rebels Romance won. That horse, terrible trip. Go back, watch the replay of that horse. He certainly could have won. And I don't think there's any question that Cinderella's Dream would have won with a better trip. Uh, and those are three horses that I would watch coming out of this race when you're looking for that Tiffany Diamond, where they wind up, and hopefully they run back early in the year or whatever. But those are all three of those horses shoulda, woulda, coulda. Absolutely were the best horse and would have won the race with a better trip or I don't want to say better ride, because all three of them kind of got shuffled back on the inside and just in traffic. I don't blame the rider for any of the trips. Maybe William Buick could have done things a little bit differently with Cinderella's Dream, but I'm not going to question him in the heat of the moment. But those three, absolutely, I think, were the best horse. Are there any horses that ran Saturday that either of you think would have won with a better trip or a different trip?
I have someone to share. First one, John, agree. I had texted you right after with those. So definitely the three that you shared, I agree wholeheartedly. Frustratingly poor trips, lack of room.
Which to anybody who's enjoying this show, I will say this. You would not be enjoying this show had those three horses won, because I would have been on an island somewhere sipping pina coladas, not doing any shows, not thinking about any racing or anything else for a while, man. I'd have been sending a jet for Blondie and my dogs while I'm drinking a pina colada somewhere very warm and very nice.
I do have one other.
We'll leave it at that. And Jim knows the pain I went through because he was there with some of that stuff. So
I could imagine.
And on a personal level, it felt even worse because we know the Joe Namath quote, "When you win, nothing hurts." Well, I was already hurting. So anyway, moving right along. Because we are here doing the show, and they all three did get beat.
One add-on, and I think John, we spoke a little privately about this gal. I was very upset. By the way, I am a strong advocate. I love Frankie Dettori. I will never say anything negative about him. He's a legend, and he's confident. He's the right guy in the saddle all the time. However, in the race, the turf, the $5 million race, Emily Upjohn, the race where Rebels Romance came back and won again, amazingly, at 1.5 miles for the 10th time. If you follow the two, Emily Upjohn, around the track, in my opinion, upon viewing the race, Emily Upjohn had a lot of horse in two different stages where Frankie could just move a little differently. And when it was showtime, there was no room. The horse steadies a couple of times. And after that, the race was over. So in my opinion, a clean, perfect trip and a better ride by Frankie, who I love, Emily Upjohn could have been a close second or maybe even overtook Rebels Romance. That's just what I saw. Maybe I got to watch it again. Your thoughts, guys?
I thought she was just, honestly, I thought she just didn't have it. And she was a very highly touted and highly regarded filly from the day that she set foot on a racetrack. They were talking about her being as good as an Able. I just don't think it turned out to be accurate. She's a really, really good filly. She ran some really great races over there. I think I've seen every one of her races. And this year, I didn't think she came back that good. I wasn't impressed with her races over there this year. And I wasn't impressed with her race on Saturday, honestly. It's just how I saw it. I'll watch it again because you brought all of that stuff out.
Big race. Anything on Emily Upjohn? Jim?
No, nothing to add on her. I think for me the most sort of disappointing, I don't know if I would call it a bad trip, but perhaps a better ride, I think would have given Post Time a much better shot in the dirt mile at the end. Like I said earlier, like horses, Sierra Leone made up ground. he's a freight train. Soul of an Angel made up ground early in the day in the Philly and Mare sprint, but otherwise the front end speed was mostly holding, and I just wish Sheldon Russell didn't leave post time with so much to do. And it's a little sour grapes because I was alive to a decent score if post time got there. But he was closing ground, he was making up good ground, and it just seemed like if he was a little bit closer towards the end of the race there, it might have worked out better for him. And I'm just looking at
especially going a mile. It's tough to make up a lot of ground at Del Mar. They got a short stretch. You're at that finish line before you know it.
The other thing too, and I was alive to another decent score with Mufasa in that race, who's normally, at least in his U.S. races, has been close up. And I don't know if he broke poorly, but he was way back and he was out of it and never in contention from the jump. So that was a little bit of a bummer.
Yeah. No notable speech was a disappointment to me, but I can't really blame the trip. I think Buick got him in position where if he was good enough, he could have won, and he didn't. Torpedo Anna was extremely impressive, but I will say this, I wouldn't get overly excited about her race because she was on a speed favoring track. Nobody went. She was on cruise control on the lead. She did accelerate away from those horses. But that's kind of what she was supposed to do when she's on the lead with those splits. I mean, she's a good horse. But I won't take anything away from me either because, Raging Sea was kind of right on her and she did, spurt away from her like, it was no problem. So Torpedo Anna kind of cemented herself, not only the 3-year-old filly champion, obviously, but maybe even horse of the year. Who knows?
John, to add to that, yeah, I love the filly. I was saying it earlier this year that people are going to start to make comparisons. I'm not saying she's like Personal Ensign, but if she runs as a 4-year-old,
she'd have to win about another half dozen Group 1
correct.
races.
If she wins 3, 4, or 5 races convincingly, you're going to start to hear the mentions of Personal Ensign with Torpedo Anna. I have another comment on the race that Jim talked about. I had it in my mind. Seize the Gray. Now, Seize the Gray got us all with the Preakness. I never felt the horse. I felt the horse was a good horse, but the horse is not a great horse because the horse just is the mark of inconsistency. What's your thoughts on Seize the Gray, guys? Do you agree or disagree?
I don't think I've ever bet him or ever came up with him in any race that he's ever run.
Okay. And another thing, another take out of that race, which was disappointing to me, I thought Domestic Product was primed for a winning effort. He was wide, too wide, didn't have much left in the trenches of the last 16th. But the most disappointing part of that race was Muth. What has happened to Muth? I don't
know, but I'll tell you something which is good for people to learn, okay? Because I think there's a takeaway with Domestic Product. I liked them a lot going into the race too, and like Gio and a lot of other people, I take this seriously and do a lot of work. So when he ran bad, he didn't really run that bad, but when he didn't run the race, I thought, and kind of, had the right kind of position to run the race, I thought. I said to myself, why? He didn't really flop. He showed up, but he just couldn't get it done. And I don't believe it was the 2 turns because I've seen him run well at 2 turns. So what I did was I went back and I watched the race in Saratoga that he ran. And this is something that I talk about a lot and I try and tell people a lot. And it's something you always got to be leery of. If you go back and watch the race in Saratoga that he ran, that most people liked him off of, okay? Myself included. But when I went back and watched it, I said, you know what? My mistake. He ran so hard. He ran lights out. He put every ounce of his strength, ability, and determination on the line to win that race in Saratoga. And I am always leery of betting horses coming off races like that. And in my mind, and in my opinion, that's why he didn't run the kind of race that we thought he might, because I think he just ran too hard and regressed off that enormous effort that he ran in the race before that. John, and I'm not even talking numbers wise. I'm just
that's
talking,
a very fair point.
Watch it. He was all in.
That's a very fair
nothing
point.
In the tank.
The reason why I gave him great consideration, fair point, John, very fair point, especially stretching out. I had no reservations about the distance, but the fact that he's retiring for stud, and we knew it beforehand, the amount of millions that were at stake if he was a Breeders' Cup champ on top of his prior performance, I just felt he was gonna get out of the racing game and become a stallion with a big win. And I was wrong. He finished third.
Moira is a horse. Moira is a horse that has looked her entire career like she was sitting on a huge race, and she finally delivered. Now, I don't think she was best. I think she was helped a little bit by the trouble that Cinderella's Dream had, but Moira got it done. She ran a huge race.
Yeah, to her credit, she always seems to fire. You know, when she came back off of that long layoff from the Breeders' Cup last year and showed up in the Diana and, you know, ran lights out and just missed. You know, I figured she was destined for a good season, and you know, it was nice to see her. You know, just a personal favorite of mine. It was nice to see her go out with that type of effort.
Yeah.
Just real quick before we keep moving on, just to go back to Seize the Gray, 2 grade 1s this year and a grade 2.
Right.
I think as many grade 1s as Sierra Leone.
Right. Yeah. So
not saying that Seize the Gray should be 3-year-old champ, but you know, just throwing a little monkey wrench into that.
You just put him into the argument. You just put him on the ballot. So
and he's got a classic. He's got the Preakness.
The 3-year-old champ is clearly between 2 horses. And if you guys, I'm sure you guys may agree, I will call it's Sierra Leone and Fierceness, one or the other. And horse of the year, if it's not for Peter Anna, I'll eat my racing for him.
Yeah, it should be. No, it's kind of got to be her. I would think anyway.
I gotta mention.
She earned it. She earned it. She earned it on the racetrack.
Here's a good question, John. We didn't think about bringing this. I'm gonna bring it up. The ride of the Breeders' Cup. I'm gonna give you my vote right now. It was in the sprint with Johnny V. Straight no chaser.
Great ride.
This is what I saw. First of all, I love Johnny V.
Great ride. I don't think I could argue against that. That was a great ride.
Yeah. So Johnny V, just to add to me saying it was a great ride, and John, thank you for the support on it. He knew he had a horse who had high speed out of the gate. If he did something wrong, he would have took that horse right to the lead and burnt them with that blistering pace with the horses inside of him. Patiently, he knew the horse he had. He sat back and just waited, let them toast each other, stood third, and at the top of the stretch, my friend Nicky's with me. I said, Nicky, we got it. We just need the 6 to run second. And I had a big moment. My best moment, aside from Sierra Leone winning, was watching Johnny V's ride on Straight No Chaser.
That was a great ride. And speaking of rides, why don't we close with this, because it's in my opinion a little ridiculous. Drayden Van Dyke wins his first Breeders' Cup. Safi Joseph gets his first Breeders' Cup. The guy gets suspended for 3 days and fined $15,000 for overusing the whip. In probably, was that the most exciting finish of all the races? What was it, 4 across the track in that?
Yeah.
You know, and it's funny because Safi Joseph was sitting in the box right next to me. They went so nuts. Safi, I congratulated you there. Congratulations again. He knocked over this chair. All of them, the whole box, all their chairs got knocked over because they got up screaming when they when they realized they won. And it was funny because I really wasn't watching her. Okay, I was watching the race, but I wasn't watching her. He was sitting right next to me with the owners, so they had their eye on her. And let me tell you something. Turning for home, they knew they were in it because Safi jumped up and started screaming for her. And there was just so much happening in the race. I couldn't see where she was. But they had their eye on her from the top of the stretch to the wire. They never gave up. We were watching outside because we were sitting in the boxes, and it's hard to know for sure who wins from sitting there, even though we were kind of at the 16th pole. So we were in a great spot, and we were like right overlooking the track. But they knew they won. They all jumped up. Chairs went flying. They went heading for the winner's circle, and it was really cool to see.
And we
I wish I would have had it on film. I wish I would have took my phone out and filmed it. It was really, really a great racing moment. I hope somebody captured it because the enthusiasm, and they picked up their filly, like I said, at the top of the stretch, and they deserve as much credit as Drayden Van Dyke because they helped her get home. And I think it's ridiculous that he got fined. I don't know how many extra times he hit that horse, but I'm sure that was a ridiculous fine in a race like that.
I got a fun topic before we close it out, and I want to hear from you guys. The topic of who was the most disappointing starter, and I'll lead off. I could not believe the lack of effort. Nothing from Vava for Cherie DeVoe and Irad Ortiz. I was so high on that horse.
Yeah, I didn't like Vava at all. So
she only wins at Churchill.
Yeah, I didn't like her at all.
When things go her way.
And let me tell you something. In a race like that,
she did win.
In a race like that,
yeah.
Okay, you know, she was tough to take in my opinion because 7 furlongs at Del Mar. If I'm going to take a horse coming from off the pace, I want a ton of speed in there. Like I thought the Breeders' Cup Sprint was crying out for a closer. It turned out Johnny just outfoxed everybody, and that horse was able to rate and sit a trip. But I was sure in my mind, if I would have took if you would have said, John, you could have half the field, I would have took all the closes and threw out all the speed.
7 furlongs is the most unique distance you'll find practically in all of racing, in my opinion. And Vava had 5 out of 8, 5 wins, impressive wins at the distance. To be a total no-show, I was in shock.
Didn't surprise me. Didn't surprise me.
Okay.
And even City of Troy didn't surprise me. In a way it did, but I mean, Jim and I were talking out there, and I said to Jim, we watched him get over the dirt, and he was skipping over it like it was no problem. And I said, I will not be surprised if this horse pulls it off and wins, and I will not be surprised if he toils last and is gasping for air on the way home. So I don't think anybody really shocked me that way this year. There were some races I didn't figure right at all, but nobody really. No, looking it over, there's nobody that really shocked me not showing up or running huge. Neither way. There were no shockers to me anyway.
Yeah. I think Mufasa is probably the most disappointing horse for me. Usually up on the lead, like I said, and just
I thought
total no-show.
I thought he would sit a good stalking trip, but
he
hung out wide, and he did get a distance of ground in Chile or wherever it is that he was from. So I thought he was going to run good. Going back to the 2-year-old day, the 4-horse Aspen, I forget the name, that horse that won the juvenile race at a big price. I thought in that race, all of those European horses were about equal, and any one of them could win. And the longest price one did, So it's just, I didn't like the horse particularly, but I just thought they were all the same, in that particular race. There was nobody that really stuck out to me over any of the others.
It had the dogfight feel to it. You're right. But Asterius, the 2 in that race, from what I saw in the European races going straight. I just felt the horse had a great position, and I was surprised that he didn't clear and have the lead. Are you talking about that race, the first one on?
Yeah, that was the race where I said I think in the 2, 3, 4, all of them. I said you bet one, you can bet them all. They're all because I follow those European races closely all year long, and I just knew that those horses. If you like one, if you were betting a pick 4 or pick 5 and you used one, you really had to use the others, so you would have been alive. But I didn't do a lot of betting on Friday really because I wanted to save. Me, I like to wait to take my shots in the spots that I like, and it wasn't Friday. But
what'd you guys think of Cogburn? It looked like going around that far turn when he put 3 or 4 lengths on the field. It looked like at the moment like that was going to be the winning move, and then he just ran out of gas.
I never thought he was going to win. I told you going into the race, I thought he was one of the heavy favorites that were very vulnerable. And even when he took the lead like that, I I was sitting there watching. I said, somebody's going to come get him. I don't know who it is, but somebody's going to go get him. And
John, we were on the same page. I shorted Cogburn 100%. I did not like.
I didn't include him either.
Yeah, I didn't like the way Cogburn came out of the race at Kentucky Downs. And guys, I had my heart pulled out of my chest in that race because I was on AG Bullet, the gray filly, to beat the boys. She passes Cogburn. I feel like I got it. I'm talking, 60, 70 yards to the wire, and that's when that horse, the 4, came flying. But I knew Motorius also ran a big race and had trouble, but I thought I was winning, guys. And
it looked like you were going to win, and we spent a little time with Umberto, and we would have loved to have seen him win one. He's going to get, he's definitely going to get his. He's been close a couple of times, Smooth Like Straight, a couple of years back.
Yeah, remember that horse,
when the Godolphin horse nailed him on the wire. He was second, I think, in a couple of races this year at some nice prices. But you go back and watch that race, Motorius was no question the best horse.
I agree.
Watch the replay.
Horrible trip.
No.
My point I'm making, I take the filly to beat Cogburn.
Yeah.
It happens, but I lose anyway. So it's,
this game is not for the faint of heart. Not for the faint of heart. So, all right, always a pleasure. I think did we find some diamonds to look forward to? I don't know if these horses are going to run back. Maybe we should. Maybe
they're all retired now.
Yeah, they might be, but maybe we'll go back and look at the 2-year-old races and do another show. Just
immersive
watching. Yeah, but everybody knows she's the early favorite for the Oaks already. I'm talking about the ones that they don't see, not the ones that everybody sees. So maybe we'll go back. We'll do a show just trying to isolate some horses from Breeders' Cup Friday.
Does it have to be the Oaks? What if we have a genuine risk on our hands or winning colors?
Yeah, odds of that are pretty slim, and I'll tell you why.
Go ahead.
Had nothing to do with her. It's got to do with Godolphin and Brad Cox. They're going to have 2 or 3 3-year-olds that are playing for the Derby, so it's going to make no sense for them with her to go for the Oaks. And now, since they changed the point system, if you want to go for the Derby with a filly, you got to win a race against the boys to get the Derby points first. It's not like when Genuine Risk did it where you could just get in. So the odds are much less likely, especially with a barn like that. Now, if it was a barn that had 1 great horse or 2 great horses, yeah, maybe you think that. But Brad, how many horses you think Godolphin and Brad Cox have that they have the Derby penciled in?
They'll have 3 starters in the Derby of the 20.
Well, but I'm saying right now they probably got a dozen with penciled in. Maybe, you know what I mean? So
that's a fair point. Immersive would be 2 to 5 in the fantasy at Fairgrounds.
So Jim, save that clip. This way, if she winds up in the Derby, we could use it as like an age. This aged poor, this aged well. One of those things. So, all right,
freezing
guys.
Cold take.
Right, great Breeders' Cup. We got a lot more stuff coming up, so don't give up on us. We ain't dead yet, right?
We're going to close out 24 with some big races. We're not done, right?
Listen, one of my favorite days of the year is opening day at Santa Anita when they run the Malibu and all those other races. That's always a great day. And who knows who we'll see in the Malibu. That's the last grade one of the year. So stay tuned. As a matter of fact, there's a horse I'm hearing rumblings about from somebody that I know that could be ready to run a very big race in the Malibu. So stay tuned. Gentlemen, that's a wrap. No?
Always a pleasure. I'm delighted to meet you guys on this Monday night. I'm going to go watch some Monday Night Football. Have another piece of my SETI potato pie, which I aced.
Last but not least, special thanks and shout out to AmWager for riding with us at the Breeders' Cup. Great platform, great people, great tools, great programs. Check them out, amwager.com. They rode with us the entire Breeders' Cup. Shorebed Coffee, thank you to them. I brought some out there, and I needed it because it kept me warm. Because let me tell you something about that California weather. It's cold in the morning, and it's cold at night. I don't care what you say. It was cold in the morning. Right? We were out there. It was ridiculous.
It was freezing my ass off.
It was ridiculous. And I will say this, the accomplishment of the Breeders' Cup non-racing accomplishment of the Breeders' Cup goes to me. And it wasn't for getting Aiden O'Brien to agree to give me his City of Troy vest. I turned John Gosden into a photographer. He took the three legends photograph.
Really?
John Gosden took that picture. So we turned John Gosden, one of the greatest trainers of all time, into a past-the-wire photographer.
That's classic. That's classic.
So there you go, for sure. I don't know who took the other picture with Irad and Mike Smith. That was a stranger. So, who's no longer a stranger. It's a friend I don't know yet. So same thing. All right. Ciao, ciao. Ciao for now.
Everybody have a great night. See you again soon.
All right.
All right.
Nobody does it better. They say breed the best of the best and hope for the best.
Makoma broke well on the outside.
But you don't expect to get speed like this.
It is Makoma, the one to catch. Makoma has a 5-length lead in this grade 1 corner.